Good morning. I'm Mr. Hernan Austriaco and I will be your teacher today. We will learn about the music of South Asia and Middle East, the instrumental music of India. Our learning objectives for this lesson are: first, to identify the instrument used in India culture; second, to classify the musical instrument from India by listening to the music perceptively; third, to appreciate the value of India musical instruments in relation to its culture, tradition, and origin. Before anything else, let's answer your pretest. Are you ready? Let's start. Choose the correct answer and write it on your notebook. Number 1. These are instruments that do not have strikable membranes, and sound is produced by striking metal or clay. A. Avanad, B. Tat, C. Gun, or D. Sushier. Number 2. These instruments are played by plucking or striking the strings. A. Avanad, B. Sushier, C. Gan, or D. Tat. Number 3. These instruments are sounded by blowing air through them. A. Gan, B. Vitat, C. Sushier, or D. Avanad. Number 4. These are instruments that produce sound with strikable membranes, mostly of weathered leather. A. Sushier, B. Gun, C. Avanad, or D. Vitat. Number 5. These string instruments are bowed. A. Vitat, B. Tat, C. Sushier, or D. Gun. Now, let's see if you can still remember our previous lesson. On your notebook, write CM if the statement is a characteristic of Carnatic music, and write HM if the statement is characteristic of Hindustanic music. Are you ready? Let's begin. Number 1. Nasal singing is observed in their vocal music. Number 2. It refers to music from South India. Number 3. Music pieces are mainly set for the voice and with lyrics. Number 4. In North India, the most common singing is called Khyal. A word means imagination. Number 5. The composition called Krit are devotional songs. Let's tackle the classification of musical instrument from India. We have first Gan, second Avanad, third Sushier, fourth Tat, and fifth Vitat. Gan, described as non-membranous percussive instrument but with solid resonators. It is one of the oldest classes of instrument in India. It may also be a melodic instrument or instrument to keep tal. The example of Gan are Gatam, Karta, Manjira, Not. Gatam is nothing more than a large clay pot. It is very commonly played in South India classical performances. This pitch is raised or lowered by opening or closing the hole with the stomach. Kartal is a pair of wooden blocks or frames with small metal jingles mounted in them. They are simply beaten together to provide a rhythmic support to bhajans, kirtans, folks, and other light musics. Manjira is basically a set of small cymbals. It is a ubiquitous component of dance music and bhajans. It is a very ancient instrument. Example may be seen on temple. They are usually made of brass. Nut, also known as nut, is a small pot used in Kashmir as percussion instrument. It may be thought of as a North Indian gatam. A vanad, described as membranous percussive instrument. This class of instrument typically comprise the drums. The examples of a vanad are daf, dol, and tabla. Daf is a tambourine. It is commonly used in folk music but is rarely heard in other styles. It is related to the kanjira of South Indian music. Dol or dolak. Dolak is a very popular folk drum of northern India. It is a barrel shape with a simple membrane on the right hand side. Basically, it is just a smaller version of dol. This application is a mixture of tar, clay, and sand. Tabla is a pair of drums. It consists of a small right-hand drum called dayan and a large metal one called bayan. Sushir, also known as a blow air. It is characterized by the use of air to execute the various resonators. The examples of sushirs are shank, bansuri, surpeti, and Chennai. Shank is a conch shell. This instrument has a strong association with the Hindu religion. It is said that when it is blown, it announces the victory of good over evil. Bansuri and Venu are common Indian flutes. They are typically made of bamboo or reed. This is usually considered to be just a toy because of the absence of any embouchure limits and flexibility of the instruments. The shruti box is an Indian drone instrument. It is a small box whose only function is to provide the drone. There are two basic forms, one is manual and the other one is electronic. Chennai is a North Indian oboe. The sound of the Chennai is considered particularly auspicious. For this reason, it is tat, referred to as vina during the old civilization. Instruments in this class are plucked or stringed instruments. The examples of tat are sitar, gutuvajam, ektar, gupichand, and rabab. Sitar is perhaps the most well-known of the Indian instruments. Artists such as Ravi Shankar have popularized these instruments around the world. Gotovajam. The Gotovajam, also known as the Chitravina, is an instrument played in southern India. It is usually used as a solo instrument in Carnatic Sangit. Ektar is a simple folk instrument. It is used to provide both drone as well as simple rhythmic accompaniment of folk songs. It may be the oldest string instrument in the Indian subcontinent. Gopichand. The Gopichand, also known as the Gobiyantra, is a very popular folk instrument of Bengal. It is an instrument that is much used by the wandering minstrel known as the Baul. Rabab is very ancient instruments found primarily in Afghanistan, but in India is common in Kashmir. It is a hollowed out body of wood with a membrane stretched over the opening. Our last classification of Indian instruments is Vaitat. Vaitat described as bowed-string instruments. This is one of the oldest classification of instruments and yet did not occupy a place in classical Indian music in the last few centuries. The examples of Vaitat are Banam, Esraj, Chikara, and Sarangi. The Banam is a class of folk fiddles found among the Santal people of the northeast India and Bangladesh. Classification of the various forms of Banam are difficult. Among the Santalis, Tender Banam, Dodro Banam, Hookah Banam, and a host of other names may be applied to them. Esraj is a combination between saringda and sitar. The base of the instrument is like saringda while the neck and the string are like sitar. It gives a sound very much like sarangi without being as difficult to play. Chikara is a simple spike fiddle. It is played with a bow in a fashion, somewhat like a sarangi or saringda. There is also a smaller version known as the chikari. The term chikara is somewhat ambiguous. Sarangi is common representative of Vitat class of musical instruments. It has 3 to 4 main playing strings and a number of sympathetic strings. The instrument has no frets or fingerboard. The strings float in the air. Let's have a recap of what we have discussed about the classification of musical instrument from India. The first classification is Gan. Second is Avanad. Third is Sushir. Fourth is Tat. And the last one is Vaitat. Let's see if you have learned from our lesson. Altogether, let's read the direction. Listen to the sound and classify the musical instrument of India. Write your answer in the blank before the number. Are you ready? Let's start. Number 1. Number 2. Number 3. Number 4. Number 5. In this lesson, we found out that the instruments of India are rooted in their artistic culture that belongs to different classifications. Like modern instruments, they also produce sounds like idiophones, chordophones, aerophones, and membranophones. They play the same kind of instrument, but it differs in terms of names. That is why instruments are not just objects. It can make you hear sounds and music where you can witness hidden culture and tradition of its origin. Moreover, this culture and tradition will never live in heart and mind of people, especially in our modern generation. You can still hear the sounds and music that this instrument produce. Identify what is being described and write your answer in the blank. Number 1. There are blank classification of musical instrument in India. Number 2. Bana belongs to blank group of instruments. Number 3. Blank are instruments typically comprise the drums. Number 4. Blank is characterized by the use of air to execute the different resonators. Number 5. Blank is a class of instruments that are plucked. As we end this lesson, let's determine what have you learned. Match column A to column B. Write the letters only. You may start. Number 1. These instruments are described as membranous percussive instrument. This class of instruments typically comprise of drums. Number 2. It is referred to as vina during the old civilization. Instruments in this class are plucked. Number 3. Also known as blow air. It is characterized using air to execute the various resonators. Number 4. These are instruments that describe as non-membranous percussive instrument but with solid resonators. Number 5. These are bowed string instruments. This is one of the oldest classification of instrument and yet did not occupy a place in classical Indian music in the last few centuries. That's all for today. Goodbye.